Hi, this is Sean Fitzgerald. I'm your judge for this month's Plano Photography Club competition. The theme is repetition, and it's a pleasure to judge. As always, the quality was excellent. This is a great camera club. Um, in terms of my judging, here's what I look for. I did a kind of two-part process. First is just aside from the theme, was it a good image? Did it have good color, contrast? Was it processed well, such the image sort of had that pop? Good black and white points, um, nice sharply shot, not overdone in processing, all those sorts of things that kind of have to be there to have a strong image. And then the second step was kind of looking at the repetition aspect of it. And kind of with an eye towards mere repetition of something can lead to just sort of a wallpaper look. And so you really want the repetition of whatever it is, whether it's shapes and forms or something, can lead to some sort of payoff or create sort of a something extra element in the image. And there's no one way to do that, but certainly with things like it could be an image where the repetition creates sort of a feeling or a mood or emotion, or the repetition helps the telling of a story in the image, or the repetition helps lead you to something that's not part of the repeating pattern, but is really the focus of the image. Or it could be that the repetition helps create an abstract feel in the image. Those are all things that elevate the image and were things that I looked for. So the ones that did it best tended to get higher scores. With that said, let's go to the first category, which is the entry level. And let's start with Carlsbad Caverns NP, which I gave 7 points. Problem here is sort of it was kind of, not sure it's quite sharp, and there's a little bit too much darkness and murkiness going on with the blacks that I don't think helps the image. The image, I think, is really in the middle, and I think that's where you need to kind of zoom in and kind of work those patterns to create some repetition in there. Next up is an image, similar image called Carlsbad Caverns, which I gave 8 points. It's nice. It's nice and sharp. There's kind of nice leading lines through there, but I'm not sure the repetition theme has worked well enough. The repetition doesn't quite pop out well enough from those stalactites and stalagmites, and I'm not sure quite what that payoff is, so to speak. Next is Coneflower with 8 points. This image, it's nice and sharp. It's got good color, pops quite nicely. The reds and yellows in the middle of the coneflower, I think, are quite nice. That's kind of where all the repetition and the patterns are. I don't know that the outside surrounding areas help. The brights, the petals, the whiteness of the petals, I don't think all that helps. I think it would have been better to just kind of work the image tighter on just the reds and yellows. Next up is Cool Man, which I gave 9 points for largely because I like the creative use of the water as sort of the repetition, kind of the repeating pattern pulling in there, and sort of the energy that gives. That part was nice. The problem is probably a little bit in the execution. The image, as processed at least, was sort of flat. It needs kind of a more aggressively set black and white point, I suspect, and might be better as black and white. Next image is Stairs Under Shade with 10 points. I do really like sort of that notion of the stairs and those repeating steps leading you up into sort of that enchanted or dark or mysterious forest. I think it might have worked better with that theme, which is kind of what I'm getting out of this image, is maybe black and white and maybe as a vertical cropped in tighter so that it's those outer elements aren't in there. Next is Meter Reader Heaven, which I gave 10 points. I like the simpleness of it. There's 3 elements. The brick, the concrete, the meters. The problem is I think the focus of the image is the meters, but the bricks are a little dominant. You left too much on the left of the bricks in there, I think, and I think they sort of overwhelm the meters a bit more than you meant to. I think maybe zooming in and focusing the image more on the meters would have helped make it stronger. Next up is the rig, and this is an image I like quite a bit. I like the way it's kind of an almost image. It almost really kind of popped over is kind of where it's at. We've got a couple of those here. that are almost right there, but not quite. And this one, I like the yellows. I like how they lead you up to the bottom of the rig. I like the graphicness of all the steel. But I think it could have been a little bit better with maybe, especially up in the upper left. My eye leaves the inner parts of the rig, and I don't think you meant me to do that. Meant for me to do that, and so I lose some of the energy and the directed motion of getting me up to the top. So stepping in maybe a little bit closer and framing it so that I'm not leaving the rig itself. Kind of again, it's that upper left corner. In third place, I didn't do any honorable mentions. Those images aren't quite there, but I figured I'd give a third. And it's sort of the same category, where it's an image I like, I don't love, but I gave it Love by the Pier 10 points. In third place, the image is by Karina Johnson, and it's an image where I like the reflected light. I like the way there's a combination of pattern and motion with the waves. Nice tones, all that. I think it could have been improved though by kind of zooming in more on the right half of the image, kind of leaving some of that stuff on the left out, where you kind of leave the underside of the pier, and then perhaps a longer exposure would have helped blur it and make it a little bit more abstract. But still, it's a nice image, and I thought it kind of worked pretty well. Next, these two images I liked much more, kind of stood up above because the way they worked the theme and were also beautiful images, was Stairway to the Clouds by Jeffrey Sarenbach. I gave it second place and 13 points. It is, I think it's just a beautiful abstract, and I like the way orange and blues are great colors together. I like the kind of the vibrance of those clouds and sort of it's kind of a weird, kind of interesting quality. And then the shadows create really neat abstract quality, almost a modern, kind of a modern abstract painting in a way. And so I thought that was very, very nice. First place is Wine Barrels by Wen-Chi Lee. I gave it 13 points as well. I didn't love necessarily kind of the HDR effect. I'm not necessarily a big fan of that, but I think it works pretty well here. But the image itself, with the kind of the gritty feel, the way the tone of it is nice. The repeating circles and shapes along with the rails, and then the barrels is nice. And then the repeating arches kind of accentuates the barrels, and all of it leads your eye down to one point. And I thought that combination made it a really nice image, and that's why I gave it first. So congratulations to everybody, and we will go next to the intermediate category. And first image is hexagons, which I gave 8 points. I like the repeating patterns of the hexagons. There's kind of a rhythm to these wasps, but I don't think it's quite. I'm not sure the image is carefully composed enough to kind of lead my eye through it and to make it quite that interesting. It's got kind of a watercolory look to it. I'm not sure what's going on with that, but it's an image it's got some nice stuff going on. Next, also with 8 points, is The Great Mormon meets Heliconia wagneriana. I like the light's a little harshish. The repeating patterns of the Heliconia are kind of nice, but they kind of shift in and out from out of focus to in focus, and I found that to be a little bit distracting in terms of this theme at least. And it's still a nice image, but not quite working with the theme. Same kind of goes for the next image, Gone for a Ride, which I gave 8 points. The image itself is nice, sharp, well exposed. It's got nice leading lines and all that, but to me it's kind of like definitely needing that something extra. It needs a horse sticking its head out of one of the stalls, or something to kind of have a payoff to all the repetition, the repeating lines and shapes, and the storage containers and all that sort of stuff. It just needs to pay off, and I don't think it quite does. Next image is Prom Fun, which is with 9 points. It's a very nice image, fun image. I like kind of the whimsy, especially the girl way on the left. I mean, the repetition is pretty subtle. It's kind of have to read it into it. And I see some of it with all doing the same thing. Um, yeah, I'm not sure. It kind of works, but it needs to be a little bit more prominent, I think. Next image is still in use with 10 points, where you're kind of working these old shapes and forms of these wooden telephone poles, electrical poles, and I thought that was kind of cool. I think it could have been worked maybe a little bit more, um, maybe with a longer lens, and to kind of compress all those shapes together even a little bit more. Although it's hard to tell, that may have been used. But what it really kind of needs is maybe that extra payoff. It could have been something simple as a colorful car way down there in the alley, or somebody pushing a cart, or something to kind of give it that little extra oomph. Next is Waves of Strata, 1 of 1, which I gave 10 points, and it's a good, solid, nice image, a little postcard-ish in that respect. I'm not sure the upper right helps the image. Kind of my eye leaves there a little bit. To me, what I kind of see here that might have been worked more sort of the abstracts, kind of zooming in, getting in kind of where it's all just the leading lines of the river with the striations of that strata, and leaving out most of the green and stuff at the top. And you might have even had to tilt your camera, but I think that would have made it stronger. But nice image, still a nice image at 10 points. Next is Repetition times 2, which I also gave 10 points. Again, it's a solid image, nicely done. I think, again, it's that payoff. I need something to kind of elevate the image up above a little bit more. And it could be anything, a splash of color, a foot, or something to kind of break it loose, something to lead me there. Next up is Glass Windows, which I gave 11 points. The light on it is quite beautiful. I love kind of how you're working the shapes and forms of the windows, how they kind of repeat. I think it needs more work though. I think going in a little bit tighter and focusing in perhaps more on the middle of the image would have helped kind of make it a little bit stronger. It's a little bit too random, I think. Next is Enjoying the Sun, which I really like. I like the black and white treatment. I like kind of the way all those columns lead you through the frame. That's all very nice. I love the birds there. I'm a little distracted by the front birds being out of focus, and I think a little bit clipped maybe. I don't think that works. I think those birds needed to be sharp. Next up is Zebras, which I gave 12 points, and it's an image. It's got a luminous quality to it, which is really nice, nicely processed, good pop. I like the repeating patterns, and I get the thought of maybe leaving the legs in since those create a pattern, but it kind of lose me in the story, at least with the sawdust or the shavings on the floor. I think it might have been stronger as a horizontal cropped directly underneath the tails. So then it's just all blacks and whites and shapes and patterns, and then there's that little red bridle up in the upper right. And I wouldn't be distracted by anything below. It'd be much more of an abstract with that little pop of red. Next is Looking Up, which also gave 12 points. Nice and solid. I like the spiral. The red is kind of done pretty well. The person looking up is kind of a nice effect. I think it's good, solid overall image. Next is Pine Cones, kind of a fractal looking image that I thought was interesting, fun to look at. I kind of need a little bit more of that payoff or something extra to kind of elevate it, but I thought it worked pretty well as an image on its own. It's just sort of that sort of abstract. Next is Texas Star, which I like it. I love the composition. It's kind of nicely done, the way it balances everything. With 12 points. It's got a nice pop. The colors are pretty. The repetition, it's more of a leading lines thing. I kind of get the repetition, but not quite enough to kind of make it really sing, at least for this category. Next is honorable mention for Can Love Outlast the Locks by Leslie Johnston. I gave it 12 points. And definitely, I love everything, the way everything kind of leads to the pinkish, purplish one. That's a nice effect, kind of well done there. Could have been stronger, maybe by moving a little bit closer and maybe shooting more wide open so that the pink lock is the only one that's really sharp and the rest are sort of blurred. I think that could have worked a little bit more. Next is honorable mention, Step Right Up with 12 points by Janet Davenport. And I thought this was a neat, whimsical kind of image. It's a combination of like using patterns and repetition to kind of accentuate the journalistic image, kind of a documentary image of this carny. And so it's kind of that combination of putting a little art into the kind of the story of this carny. And I thought it worked really well. It's kind of a repetition of various shapes and forms and characters within. So I count like 3 or 4 different repetitions within here, and I thought that was pretty cool. Next up in third place is Fisherman's Catch, which I gave 12 points. And third place, and that image is by Kathy Lynn. And it's I thought it was a really pretty image, very nicely done. Everything kind of all the patterns and the repetition of the shapes and forms and sticks and everything kind of frames. It's a beautiful framing device and kind of accentuates that story. There's kind of a weird quality. There's kind of a weird effect. I don't know if it was scanned from an old slide or cropped way in or something. There's some of the blacks are kind of blocked up, but it's not to the point where it really bothers me too much. But a really beautiful image. Next up is the Atrium, which is second place. Gave it 13 points. And it's an image by Joyce Magnum. And I thought this was really masterfully done. It's just beautifully processed. I mean, shot and processed. The darks are dark, the brights are bright. It's got a luminescence to it that's really nice, and yet a little bit of a grit that I think works pretty well. Everything leads you up to the top of the atrium, including the shapes. All the shapes kind of point up there. All the verticals lines kind of point up there, and then also that shaft of light points you up there. And so all that kind of comes together really nicely and creates a really strong image. In first place is 30 May 2016. It's an image by James Haynes. And what I liked here is there's an overall beautiful tone to this, kind of bit of a the colors are really dense. It's got an emotional feel to it, and I think part of that is using the really soft focus on the one flag, and then let everything go soft behind it, and just sort of it feeling like the flags go on and on for quite a while is kind of a neat effect. And so I thought that made for a very strong image and really well done. So first place for James Haynes at 14 points, and excellent job. Next we will go to the advanced category, and the first image is Bedbugs, which I gave 10 points. It's a very nice image. Again, I'm not sure quite what the payoff is, but I like how the light kind of sweeps from left to the right, kind of the way all the textures of the mud dauber nest and the springs and the wood, and it's got kind of those nice layers, and makes for a good feel to the image. Next image is Technical University of Cartagena, which I gave 11 points. Technically, I think it could pop off the screen a little bit more. It's kind of flat-ish looking, so that's kind of on the downside. The upside is that I like sort of the drama of those people in the upper left-hand corner, and the way all the arches up in the top and then down in the reflection all kind of lead you there. I thought even the shape of that big triangle of the shadows kind of leads you there. And so I thought those aspects of it worked well. The repetition worked well as sort of a framing and guiding device. Next, Winding Path to Market, I gave 11 points. And, the image is a little, the light's a little bit harsh, but not too bad. The graphicness is really nice. I don't think the top of the image helped. The story is not up there. I don't know. The story is with the 3 people. So I actually took this image in Photoshop, cropped it down, clipped it so that it was only the lines and no trees or anything up above, and the 3 people, and that made it, for me, a tremendous amount stronger. And then even putting it in black and white gave it another angle that I thought was pretty strong as well. So I think it could have been tweaked up with a couple of those choices. Next image is Water Fun, which I gave an honorable mention. It's by Jim Spencer, and I gave it 12 points. And just that, so it's just very simple image. The the drama, the blackish dark water with the little ripples, repeating ripples, and then the repetition of those four strong shapes and those oranges. You know, an orange looks really good against darks. I mean, that's a really vibrant kind of shape or color combination, and you know that simplicity and the vibrance just really won out. So good job. Next is Dragon Race, which is also honorable mention. Gave it 13 points, and it is an image by Ron Lynn. I like the repetition. There's a lot of repetition in here that's pretty subtle. One of them, you know, all the arms in unison, all the paddles in unison, all the drops kind of sprayed in unison, and then the repetition of the patterns along the side of the boat I thought was really nice. And then along with the drama of the master at the head, kind of barking everybody onward, creates a nice drama to it. So the repetition all emphasizes the drama, which I thought was excellent. And then that little splash of red from the buoy, or orange from that buoy, is really quite nice. So great job. Next image, third place, Say a Prayer, Light a Candle by Carol Barlow. And what I thought is this was a nice, I liked how the repetitions all kind of tie together thematically and kind of lead you up. So the repetition of the candles and how they're kind of lit is quite lovely. All pictures of what I assume is like the Virgin Mary of these votive candles, and then they all kind of, in the background, you get it's kind of wrapped around with another strong shape in the gold with the crucifixion scene. So I love how you juxtapose those kind of thematically. The repetition helps lead you through the image and kind of tells that story. So I thought that was nicely done. So Say a Prayer by Carol Barlow in third place. In second place, I love this image, is Boots by Valerie Johnson. 14 points, and you know, just incredibly beautifully composed image. I assume it's boots in a boot store, but it could be boots cowboys standing on a bench. Could be all kinds of things. And just the rim lighting, the black and white choice is fantastic. The really narrow depth of field on the texture and patterns of the lizard skin or snake skin boot. And then all the repeating patterns of the other boots all adds up to a really beautiful image. And in first place is Hazy Morning at White Rock by Jim Walsh. And this was an image with 15 points. The other thing is just a gorgeous image. I mean, it's got a beautiful tone. The black and white is perfect. The repetition of these simple shapes is fantastic. It creates a very zen feeling and kind of accentuates the tones. And the birds themselves create a repeating pattern, which also, you know, ties in beautifully to the overall feel of the image. I thought it was just, you know, fantastic image. So great job to Jim. And next we will go to the master category. So master, let's start with Sheltered Spot. And I gave it 8 points. In part, I mean, it's technically it's good. It's got good bright areas, shadows, kind of leads you through it a little bit. I'm not sure the repetition part, you know, how that, it's a little too weak on the repetition. And I guess it's the columns is really the main repetition. I don't think that leads me, for example, to the people or frames them all that effectively. So that's kind of why it kind of didn't elevate. Next image is Oklahoma City National Memorial, which I gave 9 points, you know, and basically it's two images. The bottom with the shadows and the translucent chairs and the way all that sort of works together is quite beautiful. I think probably should have just kept the image down there, including the sky above, and I know that it was trying to get the rays wrapped around the church. But if this was just one exposure, it didn't really do it, and the effect is kind of distracting. You know, either do this as a HDR and combine the sky so you can kind of get it all in range, or go in and zoom in on just the more the foreground, I think would have been stronger. Next is Commerce Street Bridge with 11 points. Beautiful nighttime image, well done. I mean, it's a very solid nighttime image. Downtown Dallas, the repeating, I think the repeats certainly are the slashes of the lights and then the dots of the lights off the lighting on the bridge. I think it works okay. It might have been better almost zooming in as more of an abstract. I'm not, this is kind of in terms of the theme, you know, kind of the repetition theme. Might have made it a little bit more dramatic in terms of like a big picture downtown landscape. You know, it kind of comes through, but it's not strong enough to elevate it. Okay, I accidentally skipped one image in the points order at least, which is at the horse ranch. It's an image that I gave 9 points to. There's a nice theme, leading line with the fence down to the horse. Kind of a nice feel overall. The tones and colors of the image. I'm not sure the repetition is quite strong enough to kind of elevate it. And there's a little bit of a weird, some artifacts around the horse that kind of threw me off a little bit, and a little bit on the fence as well. But the feel of the image is nice, and it's a good shot. Next image is Idlewild Debutantes, which I thought was very Idlewild Debutantes, give me a 132-year tradition, which is kind of cool. And you know, just I love the way they kind of played with that theme. I gave it 11 points because of that. Kind of the repeating dresses, the repeating young women, the repeating flowers, the shapes. I thought was pretty neat. You know, it's a pretty cool image. Next is One Oddball in Every Crowd, which I gave 11 points to. Again, I thought the lineup of those turtles was very cool. The images, the light's not the best, so it doesn't quite have that kind of drama going for it. But the one kind of standing out from the repetition is a nice touch. So good image. Next is Dick Sissels and Friend at Bath Time, which I also gave 11 points. And it's a good image. I love the Dick Sissels. The five birds kind of create a repetition of sorts, although it's not strong enough thematically probably. But the image itself is very good. Next image is When the Party's Over, which is an assemblage of bottle caps. It looks like, and the bottle caps are. It's got a really nice pop to it, and they really. You know, kind of that repetition it's pretty neat in that respect. I gave it 12 points for that reason. Could be a little bit more of a payoff to kind of elevate it, but it's a pretty cool image. Next is Ducks at White Rock Lake, which I also gave 12 points to. It's beautifully done. I love kind of the layers. I love you know, the two birds in flight, the little jet, the placement of the sun, the shadows. You know, there's some nice details with what the ducks are doing. I'm not sure, you know, it's not quite enough to kind of elevate it. Some of the ducks are kind of blocked up, but still, it's a very nice image. Next is Supporting Cast, which looks like an assemblage of it's kind of a I like all the repeating lines of the circles from the various cups. I love the steam off the one coffee cup. The textures are very nice. The one thing that kind of threw me was all the straws. I could not quite convince myself that there was a reason for those straws to be in there. I couldn't quite understand that. Maybe I don't understand it. And that threw me off just a tiny bit. But I still like the image and gave it 12 points. Next is Italian Windows, also with 12 points. The repetition of the windows and the balcony and all those shapes and forms leading to the three people there in the corner is quite nice. It's all nicely done. The only thing that might have been better is if those people are doing something a little bit more dramatic. You know, that would have been a little bit better. The shaking a red blanket or something like that, or you know, anything along those lines. But still a cool image. Next is Memorial Day Display, which I gave 12 points and honorable mention. And it's an image by Larry Petterborg. And I really love how carefully this is framed to crop out anything but the red, white, and blue of the flags and the flag poles. You know, it creates a real density of color and kind of works really well in that respect. It's not quite as effective maybe as the other one that I think in the advanced category, one of those other categories of the American flags, where it had a little bit more of an emotional feel to me, but still it's 12 points and honorable mention by Larry Frisch. And I thought this was very, you know, very beautifully done. The repeating shapes from the barrel vaults, it's the pattern in the shadows, and the payoff is the one shape that's shadow in the front of the one cactus or succulent that's shadowed in there. And I thought that was, you know, really nicely done. It's a simple image, but it's effective. Next, in third place with 13 points is Wine Glasses by Jose Artiles. Hope I said that right. And those colors really leap off from those charcoal grays. I mean, that's nicely done. The choice of the reds and oranges is cool and is wise. Makes it very dynamically colored. The repetition of those shapes is neat. I think all the reflections and stuff works pretty well in this particular image. So in the way it kind of jumps off the screen is quite nice, and that's what kind of did it for me. Next in second place is Canopy Pillars with 13 points. It's an image by Danette Volkmer, and what I really liked was sort of that soft sensibility that all the repetition of these shapes of these trees creates. I thought it was a very nice kind of watercolor feel to it, nice sensibility, kind of a pastel, soft, emotional feel, and worked really well. So 13 points in second place to Danette Volkmer. The one thing I might have kind of threw me off a little bit was the one tree on the right. Some people don't mind this, others do, so I don't like to be too harsh about it, but it being a little out of focus for me was slightly distracting. I think others would have a difference certainly on that, but not to the point where it bothered me that much. In first place with 15 points is Repetitions in Glass by Linda Grigsby, which I thought was a spectacularly beautiful image. It is, it's perfect. There are a ton of repetitions in there, just all over the place. It's sharp, it's graphic, it's well exposed, and the payoff is that orange orb of the one chandelier tilted slightly to the right of the image, and so it creates a little kinetic energy in there as well, just from that simple framing. So just incredibly thoughtfully composed and shot and beautifully done. And so that leaves us with the grand prize, which was a tough call for me between Repetitions in Glass and Hazy Morning. And for me, one of the tests that I like to do is to kind of come back and look at an image. Don't just look at it once and decide. Look at it, especially give it a night's rest if you can. Kind of come back, see if the image lasts, see how long you think you'd want to look at it for a day, a week, a month, a year, see if it would still offer you something, still keep you interested. Both of these images meet that test in sort of different ways, but the one that I thought had a little bit more emotional sensitivity to it, that I liked just that tiny bit more, was Hazy Morning by Jim Walsh, so that's the grand prize winner. Congratulations to everybody for all the great work. And I'll wrap it up by simply saying that, again, those who had images that on their own jump off the screen, technically combined with images that have the repetition that really played with that theme, so that added to something extra, that was all the difference in the world. That was really the dividing line here between the images that made one of the award winners and those that did not. So I hope that helps. I hope my tips have been somewhat helpful, and I really appreciate the opportunity and wish you guys luck. I hope to see you in the future and or down the road out in the field. Thanks, guys. Bye-bye.